You've probably seen the posts. Ethanol is destroying engines. And the gas at the pump isn't even real gas anymore. So is any of that actually true? Kind of, but not the way you think. And probably not for your car. So today I want to get into what ethanol is, what it does well, where it creates problems, and who actually needs to pay attention. We're checking out data sheets, we're checking out international testing, so let's get into it. First, let's establish a baseline so we know what we're talking about. The fuel you pump today and in most of the country is about 10% ethanol, and that's labeled as E10 at the gas pumps. Ethanol is an alcohol, same basic alcohol that's in beverages, but it's been processed to nearly pure form and denatured with a small amount of gasoline to make sure it's not consumable. So no drinking it. But here's something a lot of people don't know. According to this white technical paper published by Gold Eagle, who's the company behind Stable, what we're pumping today isn't technically gasoline in the traditional sense. Traditional gasoline is pure hydrocarbons, hydrogen and carbon only. But ethanol brings an oxygen atom into the molecule. So the correct technical classification is spark ignition engine fuel. But we call it gasoline, but it's a chemical blend. That distinction matters, and we'll get back to that. So let's start with the benefits, because this is where a lot of the content drops the ball. Ethanol is in your fuel for real reasons, and it's worth understanding why. Ethanol has a blending octane rating of about 113. So refiners can blend a cheaper, lower octane base stock, usually 84 or 85, at 10% ethanol, and the blended outcome comes to the 87 you see at the pump. It's not a trick, it's just economics. And it keeps the prices at the pump lower than they would otherwise be. So we know that today's gasoline is hydrocarbons mixed with oxygen. And that oxygen is going to promote cleaner combustion inside the combustion chamber, which measurably reduces carbon monoxide emissions. And that's why the EPA pushed for it in the first place. And the data backed it up. Areas that adopted the oxygenated fuel programs saw real measurable differences in their emissions. All right, the next benefit is performance under load. Ethanol has a high latent heat of vaporization, meaning that as it evaporates, it rapidly cools the incoming air-fuel charge that's entering the engine. That makes it more resistant to pre-ignition and detonation under load. And that's one reason you see it in high-performance racing applications. Now, this is a little counterintuitive, but it helps in moisture management in active vehicles. So ethanol attracts water, and that can be a problem, but we'll get to that in a minute. But in a vehicle that's driven regularly, that same problem actually works in your favor. Rather than letting small amounts of moisture drop to the bottom of the tank, ethanol suspends it and carries it through the system to be burned off. For a daily driver, that's a net positive. And our last benefit is it comes from renewable feedstock. Most US ethanol comes from corn fermentation. Because the feedstock absorbs carbon dioxide during its growth cycle, there's a net reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Well, at least compared to pure fossil fuels. That's a legitimate environmental benefit, even if the broader debate around it is more complicated. So that's the honest case for ethanol. Real octane economics, cleaner combustion, performance benefits under load, and environmental rationale. It's not here by accident, and it's not all bad. But now let's give equal time to where it causes real problems. Because there are real problems. First off, it has lower energy density. Ethanol contains less energy per gallon than pure gasoline. A 10% blend is a roughly 3% reduction in energy. And in real-world testing, it's about 2 to 3% fuel economy loss in most modern vehicles. It's modest, but it's real, and it's worth knowing. Next, let's talk about phase separation. It's a big one and worth understanding clearly. Ethanol attracts moisture from the atmosphere. It's always pulling humidity in. And there's a threshold. A gallon of pure hydrocarbon gasoline can hold about 1/16 of a teaspoon of water before that water separates out. A gallon of E10 can hold 4 teaspoons of water in suspension before it hits its breaking point. And when it hits that threshold, phase separation happens. The water pulls the ethanol right out of the fuel blend, and that mixture drops straight to the bottom of the tank, right where your fuel pickup sits. And what's left on top has lost its octane booster. And the layer sitting on the bottom is corrosive and won't combust properly. A daily driver that fills up regularly really doesn't have to worry about this because it cycles through the fuel so often. It never sits long enough for the moisture to accumulate to that level. But equipment that sits, that's a different story. And our last problem is material compatibility in older equipment. Modern vehicles like 2001 and newer were engineered around ethanol. The fuel system components use materials that can handle the alcohol without degrading. But pre-1980 vehicles and other small equipment, it's a different situation. Ethanol can actively degrade older rubber fuel lines, carburetor components, and can create an environment of corrosion in aluminum fuel system parts once water has entered the system. So if you're restoring older equipment and you're replacing fuel system components, specify Vitin or fluoroelastomers. That's the fix. Okay, now let's talk about who actually needs to pay attention. And we're gonna split this into 3 groups. If you're driving a 2001 or newer car and you fill up regularly, ethanol is of no issue to you. Your engine management system was designed for this. There's a small fuel economy variation, but that's about it. The doomsday content you see online mostly doesn't apply to you. If you're running a classic car, a carbureted engine, or a pre-1980 vehicle, when you're replacing fuel system components, just specify you want Vitin or fluoroelastomer lines and seals. And treat your fuel if it's gonna sit for any extended amount of time. If you've got small engines, a boat, a generator, lawn equipment, anything seasonal, this is your highest risk category. Not because ethanol is uniquely evil, it's because moisture and time is the enemy. And those are the exact applications where fuel sits the longest and phase separation can happen. Now, if you research how to protect your fuel system online, you're gonna run into a bunch of bad information. Let's walk through the exact engineering of why a lot of the internet fuel tests don't add up. The first big myth is that chemicals can actually reverse phase separation. Think of it like cracking an egg in the bowl and whisking the white and yolk all together. You can blend them into a uniform slurry, but you can never unbreak an egg or separate them back out. Chemistry dictates you cannot unseparate fuel once that bond has been broken. The products that claim to fix it use heavy emulsifiers. They force that separated water into a cloudy emulsion. And 40 years ago, on a carbureted engine that ran 5 to 7 psi, that was fine. You could get away with burning that watery mix. But modern direct injection systems run between 2,000 and 3,500 psi. You put a water-heavy emulsion into a cylinder that's over 1,000 degrees, you cause hydrodynamic cavitation. Water expands 1,600 times its liquid volume when it flashes into steam. Those microscopic implosions can pit your injector tips and strip high-pressure pump lubricity. The second test you'll see is people using unsealed mason jars for years to prove a stabilizer field when it won't light on fire easily. Think of it like a bottle of soda. You can leave this bottle of soda on the counter until it goes completely flat. The liquid didn't rot, it just lost its volatile carbonation because it wasn't sealed. Gasoline contains highly volatile light ends, like butane and pentane fractions. Its single job is to vaporize when it's cold out, and your spark plug can catch that vapor and start a cold engine. Fuel stabilizers are strictly antioxidant. They're meant to stop oxygen from reacting with hydrocarbons that produce gum and varnish. They cannot stop evaporation if the container is unsealed. If the old fuel is clear and varnish-free, but it fails to light, the stabilizer did its job. The fuel just lost its volatility. And the third trick is pouring gasoline on a flat plate and lighting it on fire to see how smoothly it burns. That lazy flame is burning at 0 psi, with unlimited time to boil that water off into the air. But your combustion chamber is a high compression pressure cooker. It executes a complete stroke in a fraction of a second. Lighting a fire on a glass plate has 0 engineering correlation to an atomized fluid inside of a combustion chamber. And that brings us to what a legitimate fuel stabilizer does at a molecular level. It's a highly concentrated antioxidant system. It stops the free radical chain reaction before gum and varnish can physically form. It's a preventative treatment. It cannot reverse damage that already happened. And here's a hard engineering reality that you need to understand. You can only fit so much chemistry into a single container. If a brand claims that one bottle will stabilize your fuel for 5 years, clean your injectors, remove water, and boost your octane, they're lying to you. Now, Stable treats this as a strict chemical calculation, and that's why there's 2 distinct formulas. The classic red bottle is Stable storage. This is packed with antioxidants and corrosion inhibitors to stop oxidation for up to 2 years. And the orange bottle is Stable in-season protection, which you might also see 360 protection, same thing. This has the same chemistry, but adds polyethylamine, which is PEA, a standard detergent for cleaning your fuel system. And because that cleaning chemistry takes up physical room in this bottle, the storage lifespan drops to 1 year. And that's not a limitation, it's chemical honesty. The trade-off is completely intentional. So every 2 years, Gold Eagle, that's the owner of Stable, sends their formulas to independent laboratories for blind testing. The laboratory receives the formulas in unmarked beakers labeled A, B, and C to eliminate any brand biases. This chart shows the results of the ASTM D525 gasoline stability test. This test places fuel inside a sealed pressure vessel charged with pure oxygen, heats it up to 212 degrees, and measures exactly how many minutes it can resist breaking down. And the metrics are tracked as a percentage improvement over untreated base fuel. The PRIG fuel treatment, never heard of it, scored a modest 13%. StarTrine enzyme hit negative 26%, performing worse than doing nothing at all. StarTron stabilizer, 12%. Ethanol shield, plus 2%. Seafoam coming in at negative 24%. Now remember, seafoam is a distillate built as a top-end cleaner. And even though it says it, it just lacks the chemistry for real stabilization. Now look at stable in season, 104%. Stable storage, 156% over untreated fuel. And under the industrial NACE TM0172 corrosion test, this is where carbon steel rods are submerged in E10 and aggressive synthetic seawater. Every single Stable formula scored a perfect pass. Every single competitor failed at least one of the 2 standard tests. If you test this yourself with a jar and add a heavy layer of water, the Stable jar will still separate at the bottom. And that's exactly what it's engineered to do, because chemistry has strict physical limits. Premium stabilizer handles realistic moisture thresholds, but not a flooded tank. And because it doesn't use dangerous chemical emulsifiers that forces a massive pool of water back into the fuel, it lets the excess water drop off safely. And that prevents the water from going through your high pressure fuel system. But look at the metal sitting in that water layer. Stable's corrosion inhibitors form a molecular shield. It's gonna stop rust and pitting entirely. If your tank is already contaminated with water or phased out already, there's no magic product that is gonna reverse that. Additives are preventative vitamins. And physical problems require physical solutions. If you already have water in the tank or phase separation, you're gonna need to drain that out so you can get fresh fuel in. No product is gonna reverse it. All right, to wrap this up, if you drive a modern vehicle every day, don't sweat it. Your fuel turns over too fast to need stabilizer. If you got a classic car, make sure any replacement materials in your fuel system are compatible with today's fuels. Use in-season protection at the pump to keep deposits off. You have small engines, generators, seasonal equipment. Treat with the red storage formula before you park them. Gold Eagle has been a family-owned company since 1932, and the chemistry is important to them. They specifically don't create products unless there's a need and a problem to solve, and they're able to solve it. They partner with fuel refineries and OEMs to solve these specific problems. And that's why I stock them on the shelves here at Beachside Auto Parts. I've partnered with Stable. I got a link so you can get this shipped directly to you. I dropped the link in the description. So check it out and go get you a bottle. Use it in season, year long as you're driving. If you're parking for the winter, you use storage. Look, you don't have to memorize any of these maintenance steps, fluid ratios, or product lifespans. I put everything we just covered into a clean, one-page small engine storage and compatibility checklist that you can print out and clip straight to your garage wall. It lays out the exact 5-step protocol to clear your fuel lines, and it maps out the fuel prescription matrix so you know exactly when to grab the classic red bottle versus the orange bottle before you park your gear. Drop your email at the link below, and I'll send this reference guide straight to your inbox. Thanks for sticking around. I'm Chris from Beachside. We'll see you on the next one.